Darius rolled 4 pips, and so finally, after a lot of jostling for position, looks like we're getting into something. The Persians noticed that they did have a possibility, if they abandoned their watch of the flank here, to send the auxilia forward. That's 1 pip, and then these auxilia were able to move to the flank and then slide to conform. So they are now flanking them. What this means is that the auxilia are overlapped by the artillery, so they're worth 3 down to 2. The Seloi, which would be worth 2, are flanked by the auxilia, so they go down from 2 to 1. But because they're being flanked, it means it's a quick kill situation. If the Seloi lose at all, they are destroyed. So it's 2 versus 1. So that's a good combat for the Persians. There's no combat anywhere else, and indeed there's no shooting. Oh, sorry, there were 2 more moves. The mercenary hoplites move forward, staying clear of the phalanx. The phalanx could move in their turn, and they could go this direction and pin them. They could get them into their threat zone, but it's too far away for the phalanx to actually charge them. Too far away. So they're moving up to get involved. And then also, because the auxilia abandoned the watch of the flank here by attacking the Seloi, someone's got to keep an eye on the light cavalry, or we just ignore them. Well, Darius here decided to, he was round about here, and he decided to leave the main battle line so that he himself can keep an eye on the light cavalry, because if he gets into combat with them, he has a significant advantage. Oh, he's not bulletproof, he's not immune to loss, I should say, but well, that's what we've decided on. Well, that's what Darius decided on. So now we do have a combat. Oh, that's right, there's no shooting because the side chariots are too far away from the artillery, and the artillery can't fire at the auxilia because they're in combat, and they can't fire at the mercenary hoplites because the auxilia are in the way, clearly. So, no shooting, but we do have the close combat here. So as I said before, the Persians are worth 2, the Macedonians are worth 1, and the Macedonians will be destroyed if they lose in any way. And here we go, roll it up, the Persian die is red. Let's see what we get. Whoops! Ooh, the Persians have done very well this time. Can't get much better than that. So we'll do the math just for form. The Seloi then ended up with a score of 1 plus 1 is 2. And the Persians ended up with a score of 2 plus 5 is 7. So, as we can imagine, the Seloi have been destroyed. So, therefore, over here, the actual site of the battle, or the site of the engagement, we will now, remove. So there's the first lost element of the game, of the battle. The Agrianians have been destroyed. And that's the situation now with the Macedonian artillery looking very vulnerable. Okay, exciting times. Alexander's bound, and he rolled 5 pips and decided it was time to seize the initiative. So what he has done is moved the main battle line forward, because it is his adjudication that in its current matchup, the Macedonians are in a pretty good position. So therefore, pips-wise, the Hypaspists moved forward in the bad going here, and then this group here moved forward at the pace of the phalanx. They have not reached the Persians yet. They're not in contact. Okay, so that was 2 pips. Then on the extreme right flank, the light cavalry moved twice to, just realized I've made a mistake there. They can't move twice and get within 1 base width of the enemy. They wanted to pin Darius. So they're not going to be able to do that because that would put them too close. So I'm going to have to move them back. So check with the marker. That means they're not pinning Darius. sorry, let me let me reconsider this move. I haven't rolled any dice yet. Hang on. So I've considered that, and that's what they're going to do. So no, they're not pitting Darius, which is bad because it means that in his turn, Darius can move down here, and I believe he can even attack these. He can attempt to attack these in flank, but it won't work if these are still here, which they will be, because his base would overlap, would run on top of their base. There isn't room for him to fit. So he could come down here and perform an overlap if there's a combat here. But there we are. So the light cavalry are just up there as some species of threat. And then we have this phalanx here, double rank, has moved forward to pin the mercenary hoplites. Then down here, the artillery has decided to stay where it is. This means that it does have the opportunity to fire on the auxilia. It is likely in the next turn that the Persian would have these auxilia, move first to overlap this position here, and then these auxilia could charge here. They are by definition beyond the flank. So that would mean they can't flank them, they're too far. So they would be able to fight against the artillery with an overlap. So we'll see what happens. But we do have the shooting then. So we've got the shooting from the artillery to the auxilia. So it's Macedonian 4 against the Persian 3. And let's see what we get. And the Persians have got good dice again. So there's no effect from the shooting. And that means it is now Darius's turn. Okay, so in Darius's turn, he rolled only 1 pip and decided to take decisive action himself. And what he's done is he's charged these Macedonian light horse who are coming around the side of the bad going here. Interesting thing to note mathematically, because the way I figure it is these two facing off against one another, there are no weird quick kills involved. If one doubles the other, it will destroy it. Otherwise, we'll just be looking at recoils. But for the light horse to, if you think about it, for the light horse to double Darius is worth 4, 3 plus 1 because he's a general. They're worth 2. Now, if they roll a 6, they'd score 8, which doubles 4. But of course, he's going to roll as well, so he's going to score at least 1 on the die. So that means the highest they can score is 8. And the lowest he can score is 5, so they can't double him. So that means that although Darius might be recoiled a bit in combat with these light horse, he can't be destroyed by them. So that's an interesting point. There's such a... And that's only 4 against 2, remember. So even with just those 2 points of difference, he is completely safe from being destroyed. Yes, he can be recoiled, but he can't be destroyed. So elsewhere, well, there's nothing elsewhere because you only had the 1 pip. So there's no shooting because this is the Persian bound. So now we're going to roll up and hopefully see some interesting combat here. So it's 4 for the Persians against 2 for the Macedonians. Let's see what happens. And it's okay. So let's see. The Persians will have won that. Persians will have ended up with a score of 7, and the Macedonians with a score of 5. So the light horse have been beaten but not doubled, in which case they will recoil. So we'll go ahead and recoil. So we move them back 1 base depth. They could go back further if they wanted to. They could go back an entire base width, which would be further. But they don't want to do that because that would put them in contact with the edge of the battlefield, and if you start off up against the edge of the battlefield and have to recoil, you are lost, if I remember correctly. Right, so they can still recoil 1 more time now without being destroyed or otherwise compromised. And in terms of pursuit, I'm pretty sure that, let's see, just checking here, just give me a moment. Yeah, the chariots, the light chariots do not pursue. So that is the result at the end of the Persian turn. And here we are. Alexander rolled 4 pips, and people are clearly getting stuck in this time. We have got, as we come up to the helicopter view and take a look down here, the action as well. This is what happened. The phalanx, double rank phalanx over here, moved into contact, as we can see, with the mercenary hoplites. Then the Hypaspists came out of the bad going and went into the Persian Seloy here. The main battle line split itself up. The left half of it went straight forward into the enemy. These are overlapping the knights, the cavalry here. Alexander himself has charged into the cavalry, and we have a unit of phalanx here. These two couldn't make it to get up to here. Rather, this one could, but this one couldn't. And I held them back anyway because they were a poor matchup against these. If he had made it without him, he would have been overlapped facing knights, which have a quick kill on pikes, and he would have been overlapped, which is not good. Having said that, though, they are going to have to brace themselves for the retaliation of the Persians in the next turn. Over on the extreme flank, nothing happened. These two are just staring each other down. So we're ready for some combat. Macedonian turn, so we can have some shooting from the artillery. And so what we've got is artillery 4 against auxilia 3. No other factors involved. Let's roll that up and see what we get. And that means that the artillery won this time. 5 plays 4. So that would mean that the Persians have to recoil. And under this new version of the rules, if they recoil, what they do is they recoil back to where their friends are and then stop. And they would only be destroyed if they had started in that position, which they have not. Okay, so that's the shooting done. So now we're on to the combat. Here, therefore, we have we finally have some classic pike combat going on here. Pikes against hoplites. So the pikes, the front rank is worth 3 against foot, and if they're being supported by, let me just check this because it's very rare that I've actually done this. If they are being supported by pikes against foot that are not Seloy, which is the case here, the second rank is worth an extra 3, so they're worth a total of 6. They are worth 4, so no other factors involved. So it's Macedonian 6 against the Persian 4. Let's see what happens. Looks like the Macedonians have done rather well this time, giving a total of Macedonian 11 against the Persian now have 6. So they are pushed back. They are defeated, but they are not doubled. So the hoplites are going to be pushed back their base depth, which is taking them back to here. And I'm not sure if pikes do pursue under some circumstances. Let's see here. Pursue. Any foot except Seloy. Yeah, they pursue half a base width, any foot except Seloy. So the pikes will pursue half a base width, right? Yes, right, okay, so off we go. I'll just drag those up there. Lovely. Q. I'm actually not sure if the second rank pursues them. And any in column behind pursuers, it says on my Society of Ancient Notes sheet. So I'll take it that it will. I'm just going to do that. Right, so there we go. Still in contact. Over here, Macedonians probably want to start off in their best combat. So they're going to start off with Alexander himself up against the Persian cavalry. So Alexander would be worth 4 for knights, plus 1 as a general. He's worth 5. The cavalry is worth 3, but they're overlapped, so they're only worth 2. So we've got 5 against 2, and there's no quick kill involved. So, but 5 against 2 is a big difference. So let's see what Alexander can come up with this time. Looks good for Alexander. That means 5 becomes 11, against 2 becomes 3, so they've clearly been doubled. So the Persian cavalry have indeed been destroyed. So you're seeing it here as it happens. And then as far as pursuit goes, I'm sure they're going to want to pursue. They're going to pursue 1 base width. Right, okay. So now I've got to get the Persian cavalry out of there without actually touching the spears, because we don't like to do that, because they tend to be a bit brittle and inclined to pop off. Right, so Alexander is going to pursue, what do we say, 1 base width. So how do we do that? Let's pop him forward, and then we will use a marker for a base width, which is that, and that's where he ends up, having punched a hole through the enemy line. Tidy up a little bit there, just a tiny bit. Okay, right. So he's pursued 1 base width, which is rather unfortunate, actually, come to think of it, for the Macedonians, because that means, now I suppose that's the impetuous knights. That means that this chap now no longer has an overlapped enemy, because they've gone all the way down to there. That's the way it works, as far as I can see, so okay. Right, so here we have the Macedonians are worth 4 against horse. They are worth 3, but they are marked down. Macedonians are marked down 1 because they're overlapped. So there's 3 against 3. And there's no quick kill when merely cavalry is involved. So here we go. Oh, Macedonians are doing well again. So 3 against 3 becomes 9 against 7. So the Persians are forced to recoil a base depth. Let's see here. A base width or own depth, if less than a base width. So they will recoil their own depth. Right. Okay, so let's make that happen. Make them recoil their own depth. Bit fiddly. Oh God. Here we go. Their own depth, which takes them to there. Nicely lined up with Alexander, who should be further back, as we've established, because he recalled a base width. Okay. And the pikes, I don't think the pikes pursue, they don't pursue mounted. No. Right. Then we have one more close combat, which is going to be, we've got, yes, the Hypaspists over here. So there were 3. The Siloi, Persian Siloi are worth 2. No other factors, because these phalangites here are not in contact with anybody. So it's 3 against 2. Let's see what we get. And the Macedonians are doing well again. Becomes that becomes 5 against 3. Yes, 5 against 3. So the Persians are not doubled, so they will have to recoil. Recoiling foot is going to be a base depth or half a base width, if less. They're both the same. It's 20 millimeters. So they'd like to recoil at base depth, but they can't. So they will end up hitting Alexander. Or they'll be stopped when they reach Alexander. So, gosh, these troops with these long spears, even just hoplite spears, they get very tangled up. Yes, so we'll take them back, if we can, to Alexander's back corner, something like that. And that's as far as they recoil. And then the auxilia, I'm sure the auxilia don't pursue. It doesn't sound like the sort of thing that auxilia would do. I mean, really. Right, so that's where we ended up. Okay. Now that puts them there. Okay. Okay, so that's the end of that turn. So what have we got? The Persians have lost a unit. Okay, so it's now 1-1. I don't like the position Alexander's in though, because he can't recoil because he's got enemy behind him. He's in contact with them because they've just recoiled into him. Well, it depends on how many pips Darius rolls, because Alexander could be in an extremely vulnerable position there, having surged forward through the gap. Might have been better for me to have had this combat first, because then the Siloi would have recoiled. I don't know. We'll think about it. Okay, over to the Persian turn. Well, things are really heating up because this time Darius rolled 5 pips. Plenty of scope of action there. And things are not looking good for Alexander. The main problem was the fact that he now has the Persian Siloi behind him and in contact with him, which means that he cannot recoil. If he is required to recoil, he will be destroyed because he's already in contact with him. So what the Persians did was they took 2 units of light cavalry and moved them just simply over here and put him into combat, and also overlapped. They already had a unit of cavalry alongside him, so they count as an overlap. So he's actually overlapped on both flanks. Now he's still worth 5, minus 2 becomes 3, and they're worth 2. So it's 2 against 3, but if he loses the combat, he is destroyed, and he is the general. That doesn't lose you the game, but it's very hard to win if your general gets killed. They also moved, that was 2 pips, they also moved, these 2 units were, as a group, able to move straight down here. So here we've got scythe chariots up against 1 rank of pikes, so that's looking good for the scythe chariots. They have a quick kill on them. It's 4 against 4. Here we have the knights against the pikes. Knights are worth 3, pikes are worth 4, but the knights do have a quick kill on the pikes, so that's an interesting situation there. Those were in fact, oh no, then the other move was down here where the Persian auxilia have finally moved into position to attack the artillery. So they moved down here, hit the artillery. They moved down first, down to this position. Then they moved, hit the artillery in the flank, so they turned to face. So that's the situation there. Artillery is overlapped by the Persian auxilia. So this could be, I think we've actually got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 combats to resolve. So plenty going on. So I think it doesn't really matter where we start. We want to start off with, if we have possible overlap considerations, we want to start with the strongest combat. So I think I'll start here actually, where we have no overlaps, but these are worth 4 against mounted. These are worth 4 against foot. So it's 4 against 4, but they have a quick kill on the pikes. So we'll see what happens there. So it's the scythe chariots against the pikes, and the Persians as usual are red. And well, have a look at that. Let's see what we've got. Okay, so it's 4 against 4, so it's actually a tie. Not quite sure. Let's see, in a tie, the scythe chariots are definitely destroyed. And let's see. Nothing happens to the pikes. No. So the scythe chariots didn't quite get it. If they'd had 1 more point, they would have destroyed the pikes. But they didn't. So the scythe chariots, as is often the case, are in fact destroyed. So there we go. Scythe chariots, an unusual unit, of course, because they don't count towards the victory conditions. So the Persians at the moment, officially, for victory conditions, count as having lost 1 unit, which is to say, I just put that at the wrong end of the battlefield. There we go. Put it at the Persian end of the battlefield. So the Persians have actually lost 1 unit in terms of victory conditions. I'm just going to take a quick pause.